What's up, y'all? It's your girl Zeze back with another Mother 11 vid, and today I have a special guest, Mr. Dr. OB. Okay, I said Mr. Doctor, but Dr.
Mr.
OB.
Doctor. That's all right. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
And I'm gonna let him introduce himself right quick. Go ahead.
Cool, cool. What's up, y'all? My name is Alan, aka Dr. Obi. I started a YouTube channel called We Need to Talk. I interview black men and black women, and we're trying to mend the divide between both parties. So I'm really excited to talk to you, ZZ.
And I am too. And you know what? I'm even more excited because y'all know I
Sure.
already, I'm speaking to a lot of, especially last year, I spoke to a lot of black people about relationships and things surrounding the issues with black families and relationships in general. But for the most part, actually, for the most part, I think all of my interviews last year were from Black Americans. Like everybody I interviewed last year was foundational Black Americans. So this is going to be we're starting off the year a little different, okay?
Spicy, yeah.
Because, Dr. Obi is going to be
Good.
our first non-FBA Black man to come up here and speak on some issues because I want to get a different perspective, and I'm a little curious on some of the like comparing and contrasting without some of the similarities and differences in our communities, through our
Definitely.
experiences, especially coming from a Black man.
Yeah,
So first things first, you are Nigerian,
I
okay?
am.
How long have you been in the States?
We moved to New York when I was 8, and we moved to the South when I was about 10. So I'm 28 now, so it's like 20 years.
What part did you move to? Where'd you grow up at in the States?
In New York, we lived in Long Island. In the South, we lived in Greenville, South Carolina.
Did you go to college out there too?
I did. I did. I went to Lander University, small school. It's good because I graduated. So, you know what I'm saying? If it was bigger, I might have got distracted doing other type of shit. So, yeah.
Was there a lot of did you have a lot of like other Nigerians in that area, or like non-FBAs over there in that area that you grew up with?
So what was interesting, and I talked about, the whole booty scratcher thing when we were talking to Omuwale, but there was a community of, Africans in Greenville, but it wasn't like, Jersey or Maryland where you had other Africans in school.
Hmm.
So a lot of times I was the only one. Wherever I went, I was the only one. So I had to really learn how to assimilate. So if you don't know, you would think I was just African American. I know the slang. I know, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Actually, what it's funny you said that because I was about to ask, what was your like in your house, like as far as your parents and family went? Were they did they bring a lot of the Nigerian culture over here with you, or was they fine with you kind of assimilating, becoming more Americanized? Did they want you to stay like, no, you don't need to be listening to that music, you don't need to wear stuff like that, you need to, like, did they want you to kind of keep in contact with your culture and that, was that important to them?
It was kind of both. So my mom, she was a journalist back in Nigeria. So she's really big on English, more so than our native language. So that's probably why I speak, the way I do. But yeah, they didn't want me listening to gangster rap, but I couldn't even play football till high school, right? And it's something
Wow.
I always wanted to do, but they wanted me to play soccer. So it was kind of like one foot in this world, but one foot in the other,
Mm.
simultaneously.
Do you have siblings? Did you grow up
I
with siblings?
do. I'm the oldest of four, so I got two sisters and a brother.
Okay. And
Yeah,
you said you're the oldest. Okay.
yeah,
I'm curious now. Um, Over here, as far as Black Americans, we've kind of been growing up in a sort of matriarchy, and
mhm,
our gender roles have kind of been reversed. We kind of touched on this on when we was on the panel.
yeah.
The dysfunction has kind of been normalized in our community. So I'm kind of curious, how was that growing up in your home? Did y'all have like your brother and sister had like it was? Did your parents implement you all's gender roles? Like, did you know what you like your place was in the household when it came to like marriage and relationships?
A lot of my upbringing, particularly, was kind of influenced by the fact that not only am I the first child, I'm the first son, I'm the first grandchild, I'm the first grandson.
Mm.
So from an African perspective, that's really, really significant. So like there's always been a bunch of like pressure on me, a bunch of pressure to not, mess up the family name, not, what I'm saying, fail in life, or not even it's one of those things. Even when my siblings do something, it's my fault for not setting a good enough example.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So that part is very much traditional. Now, as far as my parents' dynamic, it was very untraditional because my mom is more so she's more so in charge. I'm just keep it a buck. She's more so in charge, and my dad is more so passive. So in a weird way, I think I became the way I am as a. I think I'm my mom's dream nigga. To be, I think she created me to have all the traits of my dad that she likes, but also to not have the traits that she doesn't like.
Mm.
So yeah, it's weird. I don't want to talk too much, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Did your father have were you close to your father growing up? Did he have a heavy influence on you as well?
He was one of those people who's like seen but not heard. If I'm being completely honest, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I want to be completely opposite of. Right? He was very much going to work, come back, but as far as like learning the game, learning life, learning women, I had to go out here, bump my head, and figure that shit out myself. hmm
Mm.
So in a way, in a weird way, I mean, not the same, but a lot of men come up without fathers, and I had a similar, not the same experience, but I had a similar experience. So I
Mm.
have an appreciation for what that means and like the gap that creates in our lives.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because fathers are essential,
Absolutely,
raising children. That's a fact.
absolutely.
So I'm curious. Have you noticed that? Is it like is are the gender roles pushed more back where you're from? Like because I know I'm assuming that you at least you have other friends who are also not FBA
Yes.
and half FBA or like grew up over here. Like the ones that aren't Americanized though are the gender roles pushed more over there like or in those families?
Yes, and okay, I'm gonna answer this two ways. So, are the gender roles pushed more? Yes. Are the gender roles adhered to in our generation? Not really.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, and I tell people all the time, America's number one export is culture. So, what y'all are doing over here, as far as the male female dynamic, particularly black men and black women here, it influences everywhere, including the diaspora, including like the continent, right? You have a lot of African women, African girls who grow up learning how to be a traditional woman, but going completely against it because the feminism push over here is so strong. Girl, you can do what you want to do, and you can be what you want to be, and can't no nigga tell you shit. And weirdly enough, you get a lot of that over there too. Now, are there women who live in villages who not really, who haven't really been indoctrinated into that? Yes, but people in the cities, people who are paying attention to things that are going on, they just is, for lack of a better term, hard headed
Mm.
as women in the U.S. So
I mean, I feel like though, because you know what, I was going to even ask you about that as well. Is
mm,
some of the differences and similarities you may have noticed between the women there and the women here? Because even
mm,
being like I talk about a lot, primarily the like Black American women, issues and surrounding our issues, relationships and things of that nature. But even like just scrolling through the internet, I've been seeing some not, it's been like in the UK, I mean Africa, like I mean it's everywhere, and I'm like, damn, y'all sound like us
yeah,
you all the way across the world.
yeah,
This is crazy. Like we've been dealing with a lot of the same issues. So
yeah.
what have you noticed?
I will say this. What's the term everybody's using? Divest? Is it divest?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Get you a white man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I think African women are a lot more enthusiastic about that than African American women. I think, for all intents and purposes, y'all are more committed to the idea of a black family, to the
Mm.
idea of a black nation. African women tend to be more committed to the idea of an easy life. And if a white man can give me an easy life, I'm gonna go with him. Whereas a lot of black women, in my opinion, in my experience, they're willing to go down with the ship. They're willing to hold on for Boaz, right? And
Mm.
Boaz need to look chocolate. With that being said, I appreciate African American women for that. I think that y'all and I talk about this all the time. As far as like the Pan Africanist movement, it started here,
Mm,
and in as much as a lot of Africans are African and they were born on the continent, they were raised on the continent, the ethnocentric consciousness that you would think would be a consequence of that isn't necessarily there. A
mm,
lot of Africans are going to push back on that. A lot of Nigerians are going to push back on that. But the truth remains that motherfuckers only Nigerian African on October 5th or in the club or when one of our artists wins a Grammy. But as far as understanding what's going on the continent, understanding what's going on in the country, and being committed to being part of that change, I don't think most Africans are actually interested.
mm.
Unfortunately, I don't think they know where to start, which I don't blame them for. I'm trying to figure it out myself. But for us in general, and for our women in particular, it's more about getting as far away from that as possible.
And
You know,
what about on the flip side of that for the men? Have you noticed some of the similarities and differences between how men, even how men there handle their women, and between American men handling their women here?
one of the things that pisses me off is that if you see a white boy with a black woman, it's always like eights, nines, and tens. They always bag
Mm.
the top notch black women. If you see a black man with a white girl, it be the white girls that the white niggas don't even like. And I mention that because a lot of our men are guilty of that. They come over here and they like the trailer trash white woman is still better than whatever I have back home or whatever, you know what I'm saying, reminds me of myself.
Mm.
With that being said, there's a lot of there's a lot of cultural education necessary to really be able to dialogue with a black woman, particularly an African American, because there are a lot of layers you have to be able to work through and interact with to really get to the core of who she is and what y'all could be. And I think too often Africans who are coming from the continent, our education system deprioritizes knowledge of self
Mm.
and it prioritizes STEM. So you'll see a lot of Africans be doctors, lawyers, engineers, the whole nine, but most of them don't really understand the dynamics of their culture, the reasons why Africa was colonized, or they can't even speak intelligently a lot of times about what their theories might be on our dysfunction, the root of it, and how we undo it.
Mm.
Whereas over here, what I found is that there is that ethnocentric movement of I am black, hear me roar, my hair, I'm unapologetic about this, unapologetic about that. Whereas Africans on the continent, and this is the difference between being colonized versus being enslaved. Because
Mm.
colonization, you can make the argument, is worse only because it keeps you comfortable enough to not have to risk death to change things.
Mm.
Whereas y'all had it so bad that it's like, give me liberty or give me death over here.
Mm.
There's a lot of Africans, it's like, shit is bad, but you know what I'm saying? I'm still able to function. I'm still
Right.
able to live. And I
Right.
think it reflects in how we think about ourselves and how we think about each other and how we interact with women over here. So, like, when we're having the submission conversation, a lot of Africans are like, you're supposed to be submissive off top. They don't start the conversation with, why isn't she submissive off top?
Mm.
Now, somebody who understands the dynamic of the history of, African Americans in this country can put that in context and dialogue with that. Somebody who doesn't might just be like, I'm just gonna give me a white woman.
In your experience, at least, I know I don't want you to have to speak for everybody, but in your experience from your family
Mhm.
and stuff, like if you would have brought a white woman home, even if she was of quality, whatever the case may be, like how would that go about? And is there a difference between you bringing a white woman home and your sister bringing a white man home?
Part of the reason why I said, sometimes I said I'm ashamed to be Nigerian, and I actually want to talk about that in a documentary at some point in my life, is that I think a lot of our a lot of our pride is a facade.
Mm.
I don't think it's real. I don't think it's deep. I don't think it's genuine. My mom has actually told me at some time ago, she would actually be more comfortable if I brought home a white woman instead of an African American woman.
Oh wow.
Now, I say it all the time. Black people are impossible to love unless you love black people. And
Mm.
what I mean when I say that is like you have to make the decision to love black people and be willing to go through all the bullshit and sift through all the trauma and the whole nine to really
Yep.
get to the, sweet core or whatever. Because on face value, especially like you ever met a motherfucker from New York or something, like on face value, it's not easy to love.
Mm.
It's aggressive, it's brash, it's masculine, And if you
Mm.
don't take the time to like unpack that, yeah, it's like you should bring home a white woman instead of an African American woman because they're hard to deal with. And then you also can't blame the Africans because part of the reason my mom felt that way is the fact that she came from a completely different country, entered a workforce, and the issues that she had in that workforce came from people who look like her.
Mm.
When she was working too much and fell asleep on the job, it wasn't the white ladies who reported her, it was the African American ladies.
Mm.
Part of that crabs in the barrel. So her idea, which is reinforced by Christianity and white Jesus, is reinforced by the fact that white places tend to be functional, black places tend to be dysfunctional. It's reinforced by the fact that she doesn't have a full, robust understanding of African American history. Her understanding was white people are just better people.
Mm.
So it's better you bring home a white woman than a black woman. Now I had to learn and get to the point for myself where I was like, that's not an option. It's not an option for me to, when people have the conversation, can you be pro-black and marry outside your race? For me, no, you can't be.
I feel that.
Because ultimately, go ahead.
As I feel like I would have to agree. Go ahead.
Because ultimately, I feel like we talk about love and companionship and marriage on some like ethereal fantasy shit. But ultimately, who you decide to be your partner in life, particularly as a man, is more a political decision than anything else.
Mm.
Not only is it political because you're building legacy and you're standing in solidarity to face the world with somebody, it's also political because that person is also a representative of you.
Mm.
And do you prefer how you look, or do you prefer entering union with how somebody else looks because of a multiracial coalition or whatever the case may be? I care that I look good for black people as a black person, so I need a black person by my side as well.
For a minute, at least for like I want to say like a year or so now. Definitely whenever Kevin Samuels went viral, first went viral like last year.
Right.
There's been a huge uproar from black men, at least in the internet space, the manosphere, where black American men have been kind of, really hashing out their issues with black women, and speaking on a lot of things they've been trying to speak on and just haven't been heard.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you seen that within your culture as well? Have you seen like a movement where there's like a manosphere? Because I do see actually non-FBAs inside the movement as well, but I want to know, have you seen it like in a different light?
So, an African manosphere. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, basically.
I haven't seen it. I think some of the conversations between black people on the continent, as far as like, love relationships, I think is different than black people here, right? For instance, and again, the reason I'm a terrible Nigerian is because I like to uncover shit that motherfuckers like to sweep under the rug. I can curse, right?
Yeah, you good. Now you good. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. And one of the things that is you can make the argument like an epidemic of you know levels in Africa
Mm-hmm.
is paternity fraud.
Mm.
It's a lot of families. They got 5 kids, and 10, 20 years down the line, they find out 4 of those 5 kids are not, related to the father.
Wow.
So some of the conversations that we're having there could be had here, but they're not. It's not as dire here. Like paternity fraud happens here too, and it's almost expected here. But
Mm.
there, it's like I married her, I paid her bride price. I'm her husband. Nah, but she fucking a nigga down the street. You don't know. And some people make the argument, when you make women feel disempowered, or when you don't value women, they'll go find it somewhere else. So
Mm.
there's a lot of overlap in the conversation. There's a lot of there are a lot of differences, but again, my biggest critique of African culture is it tends to not be introspective. It tends to not be reflective. Whereas y'all over here, at least, you're trying to have conversations. You're trying to say, okay, why are people leaving the black church? You're trying to say, okay, why are black men and women not getting married? You're trying to say, okay, why are women masculine? Why are our men feminine? A lot of times in Africa, and part of that is that, we still got a bunch of shit we need to solve before we even get to the comfort level, or to the level of having that level of conversation, intellectual dialogue.
Mm.
But part of the reason is like, it's not even happening. Let's sweep it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And nothing gets solved. So I think that's what we can learn from y'all for real on the content.
I'm so mad.
Damn, I apologize. In fact, I'm about to say something very stupid.
And I love you.
Guys, are you with me? Are you with me?
I love you. Okay. So.
You must be brave.
Okay, that's one thing. Never change him.
Always. Guys.
That's my apology. Sing. Sing.
You feel what I'm saying?
Stay in love with kids.
We play for him, maybe he doesn't know it.
Let him just apologize.
No,
We
No,
go.
sing the song. Yes, I'm sing it. They don't know what we've been through. When I knew, now tell.
Fucking him up with that belt.
Did they say anywhere like this was
This one, I found this one. I think like World Star or something like that. But they said it was apparently the girl with the belt was beating him for, I don't know, I guess he cheated or something like that. But that was her boyfriend. I'm not sure what the other girl was, whether that was her sister or friend or the guy behind the camera. I'm guessing. I was kind of putting the pieces together. Like that's the girlfriend, that's the boyfriend. Maybe he's the brother. That's like the cousin or encouraging friend.
right?
Not sure. But yeah, Egregious, what's your initial thoughts on that?
So first, I can tell they're probably South African, just based on the accent and based on like the build of the females. They're probably South African. South African people tend to be westernized. It's 50-50. So I've known a South African woman, and she tended to be very like feminist, like pseudo-foo. I'm woman, hear me roar type of feminist. And sometimes that's what you see with African women. Like they literally overcompensate. Like I got it. You know what I'm saying? I'm always, I always default to what the hell is wrong with that nigga? Like, how do you put yourself? How do you put yourself in that type of scenario situation? How do you expect it to yield better results? Like she can never respect you she can never respect you till the day you die. Like it's gone.
Yeah.
And obviously it's probably not the first time, not gonna be the last time. And I don't and that's why I was asking what's the relationship? Like is his life in danger in some type of way? Or because that's another conversation. Or is it just that I ain't gonna find what's that song with Bow Wow? I ain't never find nobody to me. Is it like I don't know with that being said, we have to acknowledge this as well. The rates of male domestic violence are severely underrepresented by the men.
Mm.
And part of the reason they're underrepresented is because as a man, how can you come forward and say that this woman, this 5'2", 130, 140 pound woman is my oppressor? The worst part is it's the men that you don't feel like it would happen to that probably get it, the 6'3", 250 pound men, because he can't put his hands on her. If he
Right.
call the police and they pull up,
Who they gonna believe?
who they gonna believe?
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? She's got to run into the wall one time, and yeah, he been beating me this whole time. Don't nobody care. So like, we have to take that into account as well. And a lot of men feel stuck for the sake of pride, for the sake of, listen, the saying "hell hath no fury like a woman scorned" is true. That woman might be what's that movie with Martin Lawrence and that crazy lady?
Thin line between love and hate.
So I don't play with it. As soon as I see one sign of this bitch crazy, I'm out of there.
Now that's real. I'm glad you brought up the point about domestic violence because that's real. And especially with the women over here, I can say, even for myself, like the women I know, and it's a part of me as well. We can be very combative, very argumentative, and it's not too uncommon that you're going to run into a black woman here that's not ready to buck up at you if you buck at her. And it's to a point. Honestly, it's unhealthy. It's affecting our relationships to a point where we can't even communicate, and express ourselves, in a healthy manner, what I'm saying, without wanting to leave each other or having a toxic situation going on. So have you seen that? I'm curious, have you seen that toxic femininity, within your community?
I've been part of it. I've been part of it, but I've had more experience with African American women than I've had with African women. But I've experienced it with an African woman too. So okay, I'll give you 3 stories. They're short. The first story, I was dating a girl in high school, African American. She was like a year or 2 older than me. So she went to the military. I didn't really want to talk to her no more, so I wasn't writing letters or nothing. I wasn't putting money on her book. Whatever the military thing is, I wasn't checking on her, right? She came back and I went to visit her, and she off top was pissed off. She cocked back and punched me in my face, and then she kicked me in my nuts. Now, mind you, I was like 17.
Dang.
I had to leave because I've never been that close to knocking a woman out. Other than my sister, I done beat my sister's ass a couple times. Cause we kids, we grew up together. That's what it was. But I was mad, and I knew that she was one of those buck up at you type of women. And now she had military training. I was like, man, this shit ain't going nowhere but hell. So I left, and I haven't seen her since. But anyway, the second story, it was an African girl I was talking to. And our relationship, it wasn't really a relationship, it was more a situationship. She wanted it to be a relationship. I was like 24, 23. I wasn't trying to, you know what I'm saying? So she was trying to like explain herself to me and tell me all the reasons why I ain't shit and this and that. And I was listening, but I don't think I was reacting in the way that she wanted. And she damn near drop kicked me. So I look like, you got. She later told me that she was scared afterwards because she didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I ain't touching nothing. So that's an African woman. The third experience is nothing actually happened with this person, but I do remember her telling me that, because I'm the type of person, if I'm upset, if I get mad, and this is a product of childhood and shit like that, I like to think first and react second. A lot of people call that you go cold. I need time to process. I need back up off me. Let me think this through. But what she told me was, when you go cold, I feel like you don't care about me. So I would rather you grab me up. I would rather you at least shake me or something. Thinking deeper, I understand what it means. I want something to know that you're still invested. I want you to engage with me. But what it is informed by is the fact that that's the dynamic she saw with her parents. That's
Mm.
the dynamic she's
Right.
experiencing in other relationships.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't conscious enough to see that, I could have very well, very easily at some point fallen right into that dynamic. And
Mm.
unfortunately, you'll see women, for instance, who've been domestically abused, they'll have 8 relationships, 7 of them were abusive.
Mm.
So it's like, it's deeper than just niggas be abusing women and this and that. It's like sometimes you set a certain precedent for yourself, and some of the traits that you're attracted to in men lend themselves to be abusers.
Yeah. This is true. Does all you and all your sisters, I mean, all your siblings, do all of y'all inspire to or aspire to have a traditional marriage like your parents, or is anybody digging in
Right.
for the polygamy, anything like that?
So okay, because that's how. Yeah, let's go there. Let's do it. Um, I think we're all in agreement that we don't want what my parents have.
Mm.
I think we all understand. Like the youngest of us is my little brother who's 17. So it's me 28, my little sister 27. She just turned 27. The other little sister 21, and then my brother 17. And I think what we recognize is theirs was a marriage of convenience. I've heard multiple stories. Some stories is like they got married because of me. My mom got pregnant, and you know what I'm saying? I'm the reason they got married. Other stories, they couldn't have kids. I don't know. That niggas be lying. But the point is, I think we recognize that if I'm going to spend a lifetime with somebody and partner with them in raising a legacy, we got to be teammates on some shit. We got to like each other. We got to respect each other. We got to like and respect. I don't think it's enough. We have to admire each other.
Mm.
We didn't grow up seeing that dynamic, right?
Mm.
The more so the dynamic we saw was my mom essentially pushing all the ways my dad was insignificant, and we're thinking, why the hell did you marry this nigga? Like, if you don't really like him like that, if you don't respect him, why did you marry him?
Yeah, that's
So,
real.
so we recognize that. So we don't want none of that. I ain't gonna do none of that shit. But also, I'm not the same type of nigga.
Mm.
My sisters, part of the conversation we have is that when she's describing her ideal dude, like you'll see in the video, that nigga is nothing like. It's literally the polar opposite of my dad.
Mm.
And you'll see that happen a lot with women. They either go for their dad or the complete polar opposite.
True.
Right. So none of us want that dynamic. But as far as the polygamy thing, I'm trying to help the community. That's it's a lot of I'm just trying to help the community. So okay, to be honest, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to, because I don't come from a polygamous home directly.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm necessarily going to adopt that lifestyle. But similar to what I said in our conversation earlier, I think it's a worthwhile conversation. I think we need to, ego aside, really have that conversation, because it's not about motherfuckers think about threesomes and you can have multiple wives, but you got to be able to afford it. First and foremost, you have to be able to afford it. And for niggas who can't afford it, you get no wife, because they're all going to congregate around Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and Jeff Bezos and this and that. But I think as a community, as a Black community, I think at some point we have to sit down and all the options we have to close the wealth gap, the incredible wealth gap, in lieu of how quickly we are approaching net zero as far as net worth. What might be some ways that we can either speed up the income accumulation or mitigate expenses? Because you can make all the money you want, but if you got a bunch of expenses, it's gonna go just like it came.
Right.
But if you got a household with multiple people, multiple incomes, even if those incomes are not that much, but you also have multiple people able to watch children, multiple people able to cultivate the home and environment, other things that you might have had to outsource, you can accumulate wealth a heck of a lot faster than what we're doing now. It costs more to have 10 apartments than one home.
True. Very.
So I'm not saying we got to go like tomorrow and be polygamous, but I think on some one band one sound shit, like, and I'm not even a Nation of Islam person, but they got some things figured out.
Nah, real life.
I'm not going like you see
I
a
would
person
agree.
from Nation like the Erica that you interviewed.
Erica
Their
Lachey,
skin
yeah.
is different. They
Mm,
talk different.
mm,
They move different.
mm.
As a community, if we are going to listen, we got a long way to go. If we're gonna speed that process up, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions. You listen to Shahrazad Ali, she said, I'm not a fan of it. I don't want my husband to have more, but we gotta make hard decisions. She was saying that in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that we need to have a conversation about. That's
And
all
she's
I'm
still
saying.
married to this day. Got like 8
To
sons.
this day. To
8
this
black
day.
kids, yeah.
I have two goals with my channel. I mean, number one, I want it to serve as a library of Black male and Black female insight.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is, if let's say you and your homegirl are having a conversation, how do Black men feel about polygamy? I want you to be able to go to my channel and watch 10 videos of 10 different Black men talking about polygamy. And then you guys can discuss what was the same. Where were they kind of on the same page? And in what ways and how drastically were their views different? So we can come back and say, okay, generally, this is how Black men feel about this thing. This is how Black women feel about this thing. And let's dialogue with that instead of spending so much time in the weeds talking about, well, not me, well, not me, well, not me. And we can't move forward as a community because everybody is so individualistic.
That's real.
The second goal that I have is ultimately I want to show and to prove that, you know, you have conversations with Black people or even white people, and a rebuttal people use a lot of times is we're not a monolith. We're not a monolith. We're not a monolith.
Yeah.
I don't think enough of us stop to think about every successful civilization, community in the world is a monolith. Our division makes us weak. The fact that you go to Africa and every 10 square miles is another country is the reason why we're so easy to exploit. Everybody has different ideologies. Everybody's neighborhood, they want to turn it into a city. Every city, they want to turn it into a country. That's why there's no strength in that. There's no strength in that level of diversity within such small spaces. And as Black people, if we can decide on something, if we can get on one page for not because of love or some ethereal unsustainable shit, but like for the sake of advancement, for the sake of being able to compete in this next world. Like China's trying to take over Africa now. They're trying to colonize Africa. But Africans are so busy. This person got his idea. This person got his idea. This person. So if we can get to the point where we're dialoguing with reality about ourselves, reality about the world, I think we can move forward. So first goal, library. Second goal, I want us to just like be able to dialogue with the truth. So instead of me being comfortable thinking what I think women think, that's a fucked up sentence, but you know what I mean. I can go and see what women think.
Right. Nah, I love that though. That's beautiful. Actually, I love that. I hope you do grow your channel to a point where you can. It's like a Black video encyclopedia. That would actually be very cool. Yeah, that would be very. I love that idea. But thank you so much. You did a great job. I enjoyed this conversation so much. Is there anything you want to promote, or your channels? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah. So I got on my whiteboard right here. I got like milestones: 1K, 5K, 10K, 50K, 100K, 500, and 1,000,000.
Okay.
But you know what I'm saying. And at each milestone, there are different things that I want to implement. I want to ultimately like consolidate this into a card game so we can bring this experience of the way that we conduct these conversations and these cross-examinations into people's house parties, into even dates. Like I want, couples to have some of these conversations so they can figure out if they make sense or not. instead of just relying on vibes. Vibes
Yeah.
will lead you to hell, right? So
Hey, how do you can people sign up to be on your platform or anything? Like, can they DM you or like how do you?
yeah. So we definitely gonna have you on. I'll fly you out myself if I have to. But right now, we're trying to figure out the best way to do it because we've gotten a lot of inquiries, but we might do it based on channel membership. So if you become a channel member, a monthly member, if you're Zeze, it's free. But for other people, we might do like a monthly or opportunity for you to be a part of it. But we're also trying to figure this shit out as we build. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but we're gonna figure it out.
The blessings keep coming. That's all that matters.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
all that
Yes,
matters.
ma'am.
Well, I appreciate you so much. Y'all make sure you go
Appreciate you.
follow him. We need to talk. Okay. Check out his YouTube, TikTok. All of that is at the bottom. I'll leave some of the links in the description. I will leave your Cash App in the description if you want me to. We'll talk about that afterwards. Like,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Some people see the nation.
I got OnlyFans if you like.
I'm just saying, be grateful. But all right, y'all. I will see y'all later. Other than that, that's all I got. All right, y'all.
Peace.
We do not play but our green. You fuck with the team. Might find your West in the creek. We crossing our T's. We don't never miss it.